everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and we don't play football until December 31st, but there's been a lot going on kind of behind the scenes with the Texas Longhorns this past week or two. A lot of folks stating their intentions to transfer when the portal opens on January 2nd. Some players opting out of the Citrus Bowl to pursue a professional career in the NFL draft. And we had a big surprise transfer announcement, at least reportedly here today on Monday when we record this. Here to talk about that and more is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, tell us the big bombshell that got dropped on us today here Monday afternoon.
Yeah, a lot of reports out there. Liona Lefau was not at practice on Monday, and he intends to enter the transfer portal. I think this is one that's going to catch everybody off guard. One of their top tacklers, obviously, when you lose an Anthony Hill, Lefau sharing time at that middle linebacker spot, along with Trey Moore being out of eligibility. You figured he was going to be the leader of that linebacking core. So for whatever reason, and there are so many reasons, Lefau's decided after 3 years at Texas to look for a new home. So I think that's a big surprise. Not to mention, again, this defense, we don't know what it's going to look like when they line up against Michigan on New Year's Eve, because we could have more of these announcements to come, either with players who are out of eligibility and don't want to risk injury in the bowl game, or players still deciding whether or not to enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, Roger, like you said, you had to expect that Lefau was going to be the main attraction there at linebacker, him and Anthony Smith, with Trey Moore and Anthony Hill going to the NFL draft. Technically, Anthony Hill had one more year if he wanted it, but he's going to forego that senior season to pursue a professional career. I mean, it's just like when you mentioned it earlier today, when we were just here in the newsroom, like I'm still having issues like trying to figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe it wasn't some sort of on-field issue, like maybe there's something else going on, but as of right now, we don't know those details yet, and officially Lefau hasn't come out on social media or said anything about his intentions, but it's been widely reported by a lot of different outlets that he didn't go to practice on Monday, and that he intends to leave the program. So we will keep tabs on that. KXAN.com. We have a list of everybody who's transferring, and transferring or opting out or anything that we've been updating constantly there. So with the news of Lefau not being available for the Citrus Bowl, Anthony Smith is going to have to play linebacker all by himself, right?
Well, and then there could be more to come. We don't know what's going on, but certainly this linebacker room, and you're going to see some guys, young guys. That's what Sark said right after the bid came out was, hey, we got a young team, and we get the practices and the game for a lot of players to get a lot of reps, and that's what's going to happen throughout the practices right now and against Michigan. So, I think in this day and age, this one seems like it's a big surprise. But you've got agents, you've got parents, you've got players that maybe things they didn't hear about their future and their scheme didn't line up what they wanted, or someone's in their ear about that. So it's just hard to say why. It used to be when a player was transferring, it was because they weren't happy for one reason, usually playing time. But now there's so many other factors that go into these decisions, you just don't know. It does sound like this was more of a sudden decision. Every time we talked to Liona Lefau, he was adamant about how happy he was at Texas and how Texas embraced his Hawaiian culture. And Johnny Nansen certainly understands that as well, the linebackers coach, Dwayne Akina, the DB's coach as well. But we just don't know all the factors that these players go through in making these playing decisions. And so, it looks like Longhorns all of a sudden. The good news is that there is free agency, and it's called the transfer portal. Yeah. And so, that maybe that changes some of their priorities when that portal opens up on January 2nd. But it certainly looks like they're going to have some big holes to fill on defense, some we knew about and some we're learning about.
Yeah, no, he's been at the program 3 years. He's played significant amounts each year at obviously a key position. Defensive linebacker is kind of that's the key spot for any defense. So, we'll see where he ends up. Obviously, best of luck to him wherever he goes. But yeah, it definitely a shock to Longhorn fans everywhere and those who cover the team. Certainly one of those things that raises some eyebrows. So we'll keep track of that here moving forward. And before that bomb got dropped on us Monday, the Associated Press released their All-America teams, first, second, third team, both offense and defense. And a couple Longhorns made that list. Nobody on offense, but Anthony Hill, Michael Taft, your All-American Longhorns this season. On the defensive side, Anthony Hill is the second-team linebacker, and just like he was a year ago. And then Michael Taft makes the third team as a safety. Taft was a second-team defensive back last season. Roger, I mean, that's kind of, that tracks, basically. I mean, both had very, very good seasons.
Yeah, and Anthony Hill, we're not surprised. I think the cool story is a guy like Michael Taft. Talk about some validation of what he did last year to be All-American for 2 years. Again, the story is well told. Anthony Hill, I don't think anybody's surprised. Maybe they're surprised that he didn't have a first-team All-American season, but there are a lot of factors in there. Maybe a little surprised that Colin Simmons didn't get any All-American recognition. But for Taft, the kid that started as a walk-on, special teams, got the scholarship, and now he is a two-time All-American. That's pretty rarefied air for the University of Texas, a two-time All-American. So pretty cool for Taft to put a stamp on his career. He did come out with an announcement on Monday that he was declaring for the NFL draft. Now he's out of eligibility. I think what players are doing now is they're using that as a kind of a subtle way of saying, I'm not going to play in the bowl game. I'm going to turn my attention to prepping for the draft, and I'm not going to put myself at risk of getting injured in a bowl game. But you can't argue with any of those decisions, especially now with the playoff, and if you're not in the playoff. So two All-Americans, both on defense. Obviously, Texas was hoping for more with the preseason ranking, et cetera, but pretty cool for both of those guys to be two-time All-Americans.
Yep. Interesting that, like you said, that Colin Simmons didn't get any of that consideration considering the year that he had, but, hey, there's always next year for that guy. He's a young fella.
Yeah, a second team, a first-team All-SEC. Anthony Hill, a second-team All-SEC, but Hill's an All-American and Simmons isn't.
Yep. Voting, all right? Anyway, sticking with Taft, he was the recipient of the 2025 Warfel Trophy, which recognizes not only on-field success, because Taft certainly had a lot of that, but also his work in the community service, and, a guy that's a homegrown, Austin kid, went to Westlake, won a couple state titles with the Shaps, was the MVP of both their state title games up at AT&T Stadium. A guy who has said time and time again that ever since he was a little kid, he wanted to be a Texas Longhorn, joins the team as a walk-on, doesn't play a lick his first season, red shirts, keeps working at his craft, dedicates himself to becoming the player that he is today, Roger. That had to have been a nice little capper to his career here.
Feels like he's a book, doesn't it?
I know.
You could write a book on for kids. Talk about dreaming big and not giving up on your dreams. But yeah, it's a story we've known for a few years, but to see it kind of fashion out the way it has, and to be part of a Big 12 championship team, an SEC finalist, a championship game, 2 college playoffs, All-American, pretty amazing story. And then all the things he does off the field, obviously the initiative with the tie, with the initials for the kids from the floods. And then we've seen him do some stuff out in the community as well, signing autographs and making appearances and kind of earning that NIL money, if you will, by actually being out there and giving up his time and his likeness. So it's been quite a story for him. And he's benefited. University of Texas has benefited as well because he's been really productive.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where that's like the perfect sort of NIL scenario. I mean, where a kid who loves to play football, he's working hard, he's trying to get as much playing time as he can, but also somebody who's going to get a little bit of a kickback, if you will, from the work that they do outside of the football field, off the football field. And of course, Michael Taft has been in the Sonic commercials with Terry Crews and a couple of the Texas A&M guys. If you haven't seen that, go look it up on YouTube. A pretty funny commercial for Sonic, but great stuff for Michael Taft. So congratulations to him and Hill for being All-Americans and going to pursue their football careers in the NFL. And just as a reminder, let's see if I hit the right button here. There it is. Texas and Michigan take on each other in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, 2 p.m. Central, December 31st at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. And we'll see what the rosters look like by then. Obviously, with Michigan, it's a little heavier than that, with Sharon Moore getting fired and all of that fallout happening shortly after he gave his media availability Zoom interview with the Citrus Bowl Association, with the Florida Citrus Sports folks who put on the Citrus Bowl. So crazy things happening to both these teams ahead of this bowl game, but I guess that's sort of a microcosm of what college football is.
Yeah, well, the Michigan situation, obviously, on a whole other level.
That's completely.
They're still in the middle. Now, we haven't heard about roster moves and what might happen with their roster and any players either opting out or entering the portal. I imagine if that's going to happen, we'll hear in the next week or so. Teams will head to Florida right after Christmas. But, it's an unusual circumstance because of the way that the season is constructed now, because of players making those decisions before games, coaches making decisions. Longhorns have a new running backs coach now as well, so it's just it's a rough calendar for college football that everyone complains about, but nobody really does anything about it. And we're sitting here watching these rosters turn upside down before a football game, where you have to convince people that it really does mean a lot. It means a lot to the coaches, for the players when they're lining up. It means a lot, but clearly it doesn't mean a lot to everybody, or else we would see the teams that we saw in the regular season play in the bowl game. But that's one of the flaws of the college football calendar. There's a lot of great things about college football, but that's unfortunately one of the problem areas that nobody seems to know how to fix.
And we've heard Steve Sarkisian and a lot of other college coaches bang this drum pretty much the entire offseason that this calendar needs fixed. So hopefully they get together, figure all that out. Roger, you mentioned the running backs coach for Texas, Jabbar Jalouk, who was Florida's running backs coach. He's going to come in for Chad Scott, who lasted only 1 year here in Austin. So we'll see if the running backs are able to bounce back next season.
Well, and then, the speculation of who might come because of him as well. We know C.J. Baxter's gone, so they certainly have some big holes to fill in that running back room.
Yeah.
He's known as a great recruiter. But we'll see. I mean, Florida's roster's in some flux right now. DJ Lagway announcing that he's going into the portal. One of their running backs entered the portal as well. So, the trickle-down will be interesting to see what happens. But Brandon Harris, the GM, is busy right now sifting through that portal, trying to figure out who they're going to go get.
Yeah.
Got to look at the budget and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, and certainly we've heard Steve Sarkisian talk about adding offensive line help through the portal. I wouldn't mind if Florida's Jaden Baugh ended up in the transfer portal.
Well, now you're trying to poach, because he has not made any kind of announcement. Obviously, that's the dot that everyone would love to connect if you're the Longhorns, especially considering the way he ran the ball against Texas.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying. Like he tore Texas up.
Right now, he's a Gator.
Currently, we don't want to get nailed for tampering or anything here in the Horns Report. So we'll end football there. Obviously, there's going to be more to talk about as we go on. So next week, obviously, we'll have updates on all this fun stuff. Moving over to women's basketball, Roger, they're putting together a heck of a season right now. I mean, we kind of knew they would, but man, like 12-0 right now with a bunch of ranked wins, and they just absolutely stomp Baylor on Sunday up in Fort Worth at the Sprouts Farmers Market ESPNW Invitational. That's a mouthful to say. Anyway. They beat Baylor by 35, 89-54. Madison Booker pours on 27 points on the Bears, and Jordan Lee with 19. And Roger, this is kind of the ideal scenario as far as who you're getting the scoring from if you're Vic Schaefer, but he's only still playing 7 or 8 players because of injuries.
It's hard to say that anything's better than beating South Carolina, which they did in Vegas the day after beating UCLA. But what they did to a pretty good Baylor team, and granted, Talia Scott went down in the first half, but Texas was already up 14. She's their transfer from Auburn, averaging about 23 a game. But to turn over a Baylor team 30 times, to outscore them 42-2 points off of turnovers, and to just kind of break their spirit with that limited roster, as you talked about. There are 3 players sitting on that bench that I'm sure Vic Schaefer expected all to play major minutes. 2 we've seen this year. Aaliyah Crump was a starter. Brianna Preston spelled Rory Harmon and could play with Rory Harmon. And then Ashton Judd, the transfer from Missouri, who hasn't played a minute, and they're hoping to have her back for the SEC. But to do it with this limited roster and the way they play, and the way they get up and down the floor on offense and defense is pretty amazing. To see what they did against a Baylor team that was ranked 13th in the country, and just to totally break their spirit was something to see. That's an arena, Billy, where we expect to see Texas in March. They host one of the 2 regionals. One of the reasons they're hosting these games to get ready for the regionals. But what an advantage for Texas if they get to that regional in the state of Texas, as opposed to going either west like they have, or to Birmingham last year. To be right there in Fort Worth sets up pretty well to get to the Final Four. In Phoenix, that's a long ways away, but they are playing really well, and they're playing his style.
But Fort Worth is a lot easier to travel to than, say, Spokane
or
Seattle or Portland or even Birmingham as well. But they're the number 2 ranked team in the country right now. I kind of thought they'd be number 1 after the wins in Vegas, but obviously there's a few other undefeated teams. But I mean,
5 letters carries a lot of weight.
UConn does they do that.
I think Vic Schaefer's fine.
Sure, absolutely.
Not jumping an undefeated and defending national champion UConn team.
Yeah, because Gino Auriemma would use that for motivation for his crew. The UT women, they come back home. They're going to play Wednesday against Northwestern State out of Louisiana, and then they hit the road for scenic Brookings, South Dakota.
I'll be along for the ride.
To take on South Dakota State. Frost Arena, that name... That name makes a lot of sense considering South Dakota.
I imagine it's after the bank, but maybe it's after the conditions we're expecting.
That name tracks for South Dakota in December, and then they close out the non-conference schedule against Southeastern Louisiana State. So they've got all kinds of directional Louisiana teams on the schedule for non-conference, and then New Year's Day is when they start the SEC schedule against Missouri in Columbia. That's January 1st. That's a Thursday. That'll be on looks like the SEC network. So
the day after the bowl game, they'll open up, and that South Dakota State game, that's a return game. Vic Schaefer's talked about the trouble scheduling, the trouble getting teams to come to Austin. Normally, you wouldn't have a program like Texas have to return a game to a program like South Dakota State, but he had to do it with James Madison. He had to do it with Richmond, and now he's doing it with South Dakota State. The other part of that equation is Jockalingam Winantanda was on the team from South Dakota, so I'm sure Schaefer liked the idea of getting her back close to home. Problem is she transferred, and now she plays at Vanderbilt. It's a pretty good team. They're 10-2 last check. The Jackrabbits. And again, it's Vic will be scared to death of them because I'm sure they'll get a great crowd.
Sure,
it's an early start. Kind of a sleepy if you don't come out ready to play. So that's one to watch on Sunday afternoon, early afternoon tip against South Dakota State. I get to set foot in the state of South Dakota for the first time, so I get to check that one off my list.
But check that off the box. Right. But put the pin in your map, right? Of the United States. Finally pin South Dakota there. All right, and before we go, we have to talk about the volleyball team. They bow out of the NCAA tournament in the Elite Eight. They lose to Wisconsin 3-1 on Sunday night at Gregory Gym, which that in and of itself is a bit of a surprise because typically Greg is a fortress for the volleyball team. But Wisconsin may have played their best match of the season,
question.
And it came at the exact right time.
Yeah, I mean, Texas swept them in Madison in August. I think it was the last day of August. They had not lost a set in their first 3 NCAA matches, and Wisconsin came out. And that first set, to me, is so important, especially if the road team can get it to get some confidence, and that's what happened. And Texas was just fighting the whole way, trying to fight the uphill fight, and they go down 2-0. Then they get the third set, and they go up 4-0 in the second set, and you figure, all right, they've got things kind of going their way, and then Wisconsin goes on, I think, a 12-4 run, put it away. And, I mean, think about this. Texas, 4 losses, and they beat every team on their schedule except Kentucky. They lost to Wisconsin, beat them, lost to A&M, beat them as well. They lost to Kentucky twice. Coincidentally, they would have played Kentucky in the Final Four had they won. So, we've come to expect Final Fours for Texas, so obviously a big disappointment to see them come up short, especially with that amazing home court on Sunday night.
Well, they'll certainly be back. Jared Elliott's, he's got
a young team,
their young team. He's built a juggernaut. So there's should be no worry about the Texas Longhorns going away on the volleyball side here very soon, and they might be getting a new home here in the future. The university has released plans. They're trying to get a developer to build it's a multi-use arena, but primarily it will be used to house the volleyball team. So we'll see where that goes here in the future, and obviously you hate to see a venerable place like Greg sort of get retired, but you gotta sell some tickets, gotta put more butts in the seats. The volleyball team is becoming a lot more popular, as is college volleyball in general. So you gotta be able to get more people in an arena to watch them play. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at A&M beating Nebraska in front of over 15,000 at the Devaney Center in Lincoln. And Greg Jim was up for grabs, 4,000. But clearly they've got the program where they can get more in. Then there's some logistical issues with Greg Jim. They don't control Greg Jim. So, it's going to be arenas just next to arenas there, right? It's going to be just south of the practice facility, which is just south of Moody, shoehorned there on campus. But the renderings look pretty spectacular.
They look pretty awesome.
Yeah.
They look pretty awesome. So, we'll keep track of all of that on air and online, KXAN and KXAN.com. All right, well, we will leave that there for this episode of the Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. For Roger Wallace, and I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.